Okay, this is a quick overview. We're in the practice problems for Unit 3 and we're going to do this test grade 1. So we've clicked on that tab down here, the test grade 1. And so let's look at this. So again, this is a test grade thing. We're going to determine the letter grade based on an exam score. First thing we have to do is ask the user for exam score, and that should be an integer. So I'm going to run Apache NetBeans here, and I'm going to do a new project. We're always doing ant Java, that's fine. And then this, I'll just say unit, give it some name, you can name it whatever. Test score. So I've given it a name, I've created it, it'll open it up, and here's my stuff. And so I'm going to start coding right here where it tells me to do it. So the first thing I can look back here, and most of these ones in this week will have to do some input. So, and we want to do all the input kind of together. So ask the user to enter an exam score, it should be an integer. So I'm going to prompt the user. Okay, do a print line and ask the user to enter the test score. And I'm going to want to read that in. In order to read that in, I'm going to need a scanner. So I'm going to enter a scanner here. Now, again, if you can type that in, if you remember, if you have scanners from somewhere else or something like that, you can just grab it from somewhere else. If I have another package somewhere out here, and I have a scanner there, I can just grab that scanner. So here's a scanner that I have somewhere else. I'm just going to, it's always the same line. So again, you can type it in. It's always the same scanner, and we always call it input equals new scanner and system.in here, and then we import Java util scanner for that. But sometimes I just find it easier to copy and paste it. And I usually keep a couple tabs open here with projects I like to copy and paste from. Okay, scanner input here. And now I can read that in. So again, the instruction said this is going to be an integer. So I'm going to say int. I'm going to call it something like test score equals, and now for the equals, I'm going to read it in from the user. So input dot next, and this is integer, so I'll do next int. So when you do this, you have to look at your variables and see, we'll just be reading in numbers, so either integers or doubles in these practice problems. So I have that. Now I've got that done. Ask the user to enter exam score, it should be an integer, so I got that. Based on the score, print out the letter grade. So I'm going to print out the letter grade using this chart here. So I'm going to start simplifying. I'm just going to say if it's above 90, it'll be an A. So I'm just going to do that first. So I'm going to say if test score, my variable, spell this right, is greater than 90, then I'm going to print out your grade is A, or this. And I like to just get parts of it done and keep running it and testing it to make sure I don't get too many errors and things are working. So I can run this here, enter test score. I'm going to say my test score is 95 and it says you're an A. Now if I run it again and my test score was like 75, it doesn't print out anything yet because I've only done this one. Okay, so now I've done this, I maybe just do the other ones the same way. And again, sometimes it's a learning process, you have to try things out. So I'm just going to duplicate this if statement. Watch my tabs. Again, one other thing you can do for cleaning things up is just go to source format and it'll clean up your source here with tabs and stuff. Okay, if test score is greater than 90, you get an A. If test score is greater than 80, you get a B here. If test score is greater than 70, you get a C. So I've again gone through and looked at this again because this is integer. Anywhere between 80 and 90, 80 and 89 is a B and stuff. Now, what if you're actually at 90? I should watch that. So I might want to test that out, and I'm thinking it's not going to work. So again, I've got this set up here. I enter a test score, so I can enter like 75, and it says you got a C. What if I entered exactly 70? So if I enter 70, it doesn't work. So I want to set this to be less than or equal to, and same with all these other ones, less than or equal to. Okay, if the test score is less than or equal to, or I mean greater than or equal to 90, you get an A. Greater than or equal to 80, you get a B. Okay, now keep testing this out. I like to do lots of tests. So if I have a 95, oh, there's a problem. So it says I got an A, a B, and a C. On a lot of these menu structures, there's an implied thing that this is a range here, and you should only be able to do one of these there. And so how do I want to do this? Well, I could change this to test for a range, and I'll actually do that in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to do a different solution. I've seen menus like this a lot, and what I'm used to doing is checking this and then else this or else, and use a series of if else statements to start at the top and then slowly go through this menu here. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to say if the test score is greater than or equal to 90, do that, and then I'm going to say else if the test score is greater than or equal to 80, else, and then if. So now, if the test score is greater than or equal to 90, we print out a else. If it's greater than or equal to 80, we do this, else if, etc. So it should only do one of these. So if I run this again, I enter my 95, I get an A, and not a B and a C. I enter this, I get like a 73, and I get a C. So that looks good. So I like this structure here. So I'm going to duplicate this. I still have D's and F's to award. So I'm going to just copy this structure. Okay, if the test score is greater than or equal to 60, they get a D. Now, for F, it's all the way from 0 to 59. So I could go, I could go and just say if it's greater than or equal to 0, then they get an F here. But I could also just say else. So if they get this, they guess, and then if they don't get any of these, then they're going to get an F. So I could do either of those options. I'm going to leave it just as an else for now for this. So I can try this out, do some tests. And again, we try these tests again. I got a 96. Oops. Make sure I put my test score down here. Sorry about that. 96. I got a. Run it again. What if I get a 44? I get an F. Okay, so we can run these tests. So that's what I have so far with this. Looks like it's working pretty good. So I can look back. Basically, let's sort of do this. Okay, so I think I'm basically printing out the right letter grade for this. Now, a lot of these will also have some bonus challenges that you can do. So let's look at those. Display an error message if the score is more than 100 or less than 0. Well, actually, first, before I do this, I'm going to look at a different way of doing this. So you might not have come up with this solution. Maybe you wanted to actually check this range. So let's do that first before I do the bonus exercises. So I'm going to copy this. Well, I'm just going to comment this out. I'm going to toggle the comments. That'll put this all in comments. And I'm going to look at a different option for this down below here. So again, I'm going to toggle these comments here. Okay. So rather than just saying if the test score is greater than or equal to 90, I'm going to say and. So if it's greater than 90 and the test score is less than or equal to 100. actually do this whole thing greater than or equal to 90 and less than or equal to 100. Then we do this. So if test score is greater than, now I wrote out and that's not right. I have to remember here, I have to use the and percent for an and the or is vertical line there. So I can do that. Now let's do the next, and now I'm not going to do else ifs here. I'm just going to do separate ifs. If the test score is greater than or equal to 80 and percent if the test score is less than 90, let's spell this correctly. There. Okay. And again, that's doing more like this. If it's greater than or equal to 80 and I did less than 90, should say less than or equal to 89. Either one will work. I just like to use the less than 90 because 90 is up here. It just makes more sense to me. So this is if it's greater than or equal to 90, and this is if it's less than 90. And I can continue that process here. And again, a lot of students, when they first do this, they come up with this solution. So you can see how that works. So if your test score is greater than or equal to 70, and percent, and the test score is less than 80, you get a C if it's in that range. Now for the D, again, I want to do something similar. If the test score is greater than or equal to 60, and test score is less than 70. Else, they have an F there. Now, can I leave that else there? So let's try this out and see how this will work. So I'm going to try to run this sample. So basically, this time I've actually tested out each range, and each range is a separate if statement. Here, there's no else's between them. So I can run this, give a test score of 87. It says I got a B, but it also says I got an F. And the reason for that is this else. This else is only tied to this if, because I don't have these all strung together with if, then, else, ifs here. This is one if, and this is like a separate if. So if I don't get a D, then I'm going to get an F. So in this case, I did. So I'm going to have to change this around and not use an else there. I'm going to have another if statement. If test score is less than 60, then I'm going to say your grade is an F for this and run that. So now if I get an 86, I get a B, and I don't also get an F. So again, so there's often multiple ways of doing these, and they're not necessarily one is better than the other. Some are more succinct or more clear than others, I think. I personally like this one because I'm used to writing menu systems kind of this way, but a lot of people would prefer this one because it looks a lot more like the rules here and set up for the rules. So you can do it either way. Okay. Now let's look at this. Display an error message if the score is more than 100 or less than 0. I'm going to display an error message. So that's our bonus challenge. Let's do that. So again, I'm going to add a bonus challenge here. I'm going to say if test score is greater than 100, it should be, but let's say they did something wrong. Then I'm going to do one of my printouts here. But I'm going to print out, sorry, some error message. Sorry, test score must be 100 or less. And I can do the same thing. I can write a test score for the other thing. So if it's less than 0, if it's a negative test score, then I'm sorry, the test score, maybe I'll say, must be positive. So if it's greater than 100 or less than 0, we put out these error messages. So now I can try this out, enter a really high test score. Sorry, it has to be 100 or less. That makes sense. And enter a low test score, -4. And now with -4, it says your grade was F, and it says this positive stuff. So that's not quite what I want. So I have this here, but for the F grade, I just test if the score is less than 60. Everything else I test less than and greater than here. So I might have to adjust this. So basically, if I look back here, between 0 and 60 or 59 is and I don't have the 0 in there. So I'm going to add there. So if the test score is, I'm going to do if test score is greater than or equal to 0 and the test score is less than 60. So that kind of follows the patterns of these other ones also. Here now, if I run this and I enter a negative number, it just says it must be positive. It doesn't give me an F also. Okay, so that looks good. Now, depending on how you do this, this sort of stuff might be harder or easier to do for this. So I'm going to comment this out. So I'm going to go source, toggle comment, and I'm going to go back to this solution that I had earlier just to see how I would do the bonus ones there, toggle comment there. So this one I'm comparing things, and when I've done this before, I know I'd start with the highest number and go work my way slower down, down, down. So it assumes that they're in order here. So if I'm going to do this 100, more than 100, less than 0, I want to stick them in the right place. So I know I want to test up here first. I'm going to say if, and again, that's one thing we want you to keep trying these because you learn some of these patterns. If the test score is greater than 100, then I'm going to say there's an error for this. So I'm just going to grab this print statement and put it up here. Okay. And then I'm going to do an else if. So because this is a whole string of else ifs because I have the else at the very end. So if the test score is greater than 100, sorry, greater than 90, greater than 80, 70, 60. And now I'm going to add one more down here. I'm going to say if else if the test score is greater than or equal to 0, you get an F. And then otherwise it'll be negative. And I will just print out that it's going to be negative. Or give them that warning statement, something like I say, sorry, the score must be positive. Okay. So now I've got this set up. So again, depending on how you word it, here I was able to tack down the if thens at the end because these are all separate. But again, this was strung out, and this assumes that we're testing out from highest to lowest because of these else's here in the way the test is set up. But again, I should be able to try this out, enter a really high score, too high, enter a low score, and then enter a normal score. Yes, that looks good. Okay. Let's look at the other option. So that's this one. The other one is to use constants here. And we began to introduce those in our lectures. Anywhere you have a number, we often want to replace that with a constant. So like this is our test for A's. A grade of A starts at 90. So I'm going to add a constant up here. So I'm going to go right up by the main, right by where my scanner is declared, and I'm going to declare my constant. So it's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it something. Maybe I'll call it the A score. And I'm going to write it all in caps because constants are usually done that way. And I'm going to set it equal to 90. So I've got this variable A score that's 90. So now where I have a 90, I can replace it with this A score. I could put A score there instead of 90 because A score is 90. Now, one other thing we want to do here, if this is a constant, we're going to add the word final here. And that'll just tell everyone that we're declaring this and we're never going to change it. But, inside, this is the last time we're going to set it, is here. We're not going to, user's not going to input this value or anything like that. So for constants, we say final, the type, the name, usually the name's all caps, and then its value. So here, and I can do a similar thing for the other scores. So I want to do a B score, and that'll be 80. So with B score, I want to replace this 80 with it. And similarly, I can keep going with these statements. So I need a C score and a D score, an F score. I guess I don't need this one yet. And so set these values to 70 and 60, and F scores anything above 0. And again, I can just put in these values instead of 70. I can put in C score. This will be my D score, and this will be my F score. For constants. Now, when you're first programming, these constants gonna maybe not make this any more clearer. When you're reading else if the test score is greater than or equal to A score, you'd probably rather just see 90 because that to me makes more sense. But as you do more programming, and the problem we have a number of reasons we put in constants. One is we often see these constants used multiple places, and we want to use it there. It also kind of comments them out and marks them so that if people want to change the curve later on, they know where to change it up here. The A score, if you want to say 93% to get an A, I can go up here and change it in one place and know that I only have to change it in that one place for this. So again, when you're first programming, you probably want to just hard code numbers. But as you do more and more programming, every time you hard code number, you're going to ask yourself, oh, shouldn't this be a constant? And then when you're doing things, you'll cringe when you see numbers hard coded in code, and you say, oh, but you'll expect a constant, and you want to look up and see where what that constant is. And again, you key off these all capitals for this. So this is looking at 100. I don't have that, so maybe I want one more here. A constant for what do I want to call that? Maybe just the top score, and make that 100. And then where is 100? I'm going to do that. Okay, so that's my if-then structure here. So that looks fine. And again, I could do the same thing. I'm going to comment this out and show you how it looks in the other one. So we'll comment that out, and I'll uncomment this whole section. Okay. Now here's something where you can see it's used multiple times because like the top score here, I have that only here. But like the A score, if you were to change that, you'd have to change it here and here. Remember to change it in both places, otherwise you're going to goof up your programming. And then the B score is here and here. And this is your C score. And this is your D score. And then this is your F score. And this is the F score. And this is our top score up here. The 100 is our top score. So again, here you can kind of see, because if you were to manually have to go in and change this, you'd have to make sure you have the 80 in both. If you wanted an A to be like a B to be an 83, you'd have to mark both places here. Where now it's really easy. There's this one spot to modify everything up here for it. So that's one of the reasons we'll move to constants when possible. Okay, so that's my bonus challenges. That's great. So that's a quick introduction to this sample problem.